in this tutorial, we are going to look at a couple more items, and specifically, we're going to be looking at how you add images to a website. It's a really crucial um, piece of the puzzle, and we'll look at the types of images that will display. We may not cover all of them, but we're going to cover some of the basics that definitely display in a browser. So to start with, let's just go back to our index page. And we're going to go ahead and, these should just be aligned at the top. They're not set up as the unordered list yet. And we're going to go ahead and just leave it the way it is. But we are going to go ahead and put these in a paragraph and then create another paragraph, right? So the paragraph, to create a paragraph, is just open caret P, and that's all you need. And you click there, and then you can go ahead and select this and cut the other end and paste it down below, but it's probably a good idea to do this. You can also tab this over as we did before, and then you can just select these 3 lines, and you could go to View, Command Palette, and then Indent Lines, the last thing we did. You'll also notice that, for me at least, it's Command and the closing bracket. So in Windows, it's likely Control and the closing bracket. So there is a quick key for it. So rather than be up in this, I don't know why, there we go. Rather than be up there, what I can do is I can just select these, and I can hold down Command and the closing bracket to pop it over. If I use the opening bracket key, right, it's going to go the other direction, right? So that's the quick key way to do that. Okay, so I've got my first paragraph. I'm going to go ahead and save this and just navigate back to my index, and it doesn't look like much of anything's going on. In order to separate this image and start to show you a bit more about formatting, we're going to create a paragraph tag to house the image tag in as well. And so there's 2 different types of tags and that change formatting and control formatting. There are what are called block level tags, which a paragraph is considered a block. And there are inline tags, right? Like an anchor tag is technically an inline tag. If you bold text or italicize text or do anything like that, those are inline changes. But then divs and paragraphs, and there's some other options that are a block. They control a block of text, or essentially a box of space on the screen rather than one of the lines of text in the screen. Okay, so how do we bring an image in? Well, the first thing that we need to do is we're going to need to use the Img tag. And so we're going to do an opening caret Img, and then we hit a space, and it's src. And what that is short for is source. And so this is basically much like the href up here. It's saying, where do I need to look to find the image that you want me to find? And so to do that, we're going to want to be able to bring images into this folder. So if I so what we're going to need to do is we're going to navigate to this folder on your hard drive, and then we will go ahead and open that up and bring some images in. So, okay, so here's my interwebs project. Now, because this is for this course, and this is a course that deals with some digital imaging, you'll see that outside of this folder, I have several different image types. I have this one here that actually doesn't have a tag on it at all, but I've got this is an Illustrator file. This bug thing.jpg is a JPEG, right? There's TIFFs, there's PSD files, and so which one of these can we use and which ones can't we use? Basically, PNGs, JPEGs, and GIFs, which I don't think I have anything on here, are the 3 primary formats that you can use. A PSD file will not show appropriately, and the same is true for a TIFF file, right? They don't render in a browser. And aside from that, JPEGs and PNGs are compressed. And what that means is that for the number of pixels that you see on the screen, They are significantly smaller in size than, say, a TIFF image, which is, it can be compressed, but it's generally an uncompressed format. And the same with a PSD file, right? A Photoshop document has many, many layers in it, and those files get huge. And with the internet, when you're doing things online, you want your resources to load as quickly as possible. And there's other things that we're not going to really talk about, but content delivery networks and things like that, where you host all your images on an external server and they load really quickly because that server is very fast. And so we're not going to worry about that right now. But what we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab an image. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say, sure, this is something I grabbed off of Pexels or one of those sites. And so this seems like a good image. It's kind of huge, but we're going to go ahead and we'll use that. And let me see if there's another PNG floating around here somewhere that we could use. That is, wow. Well, this is really ugly, so we should probably use this. So let's go ahead and we'll select this tutorial1.jpg and this man. For those, you can just find images anywhere and download them. I'm actually going to go ahead and grab, I should have a PNG that has a transparent background too. Oh, I've got this GIF too, great. I'm going to select all three of these, and then if I can actually use the right keys, I'm going to select all three of these. Okay, so I've got 3 test images selected. I'm just going to go ahead and copy those and double click and paste them into this folder. Now, one of the things that you can maybe already start to tell is if you get a complex website with a lot of images and things, it's going to get really ugly really quickly if you just have everything in the top level folder. So it's oftentimes good to create subfolders. And in this case, I'm going to right click and create a new folder, and I'm going to call this folder images. Right? And I'm going to go ahead and place these 3 images that I have no idea about, and I don't know why dragging it is going so slow right now. Odd. Maybe I can pull them in one at a time. Okay, so I've got those 3 things in this folder, and it's inside my interwebs project. So if I come over here, and you'll see that that's already updated. There is this option to refresh this, but it's already updated. And if I click here, right, you can see my 3 images that I've got here. And so what I can do is, okay, so what I can, so what I'm going to do is I need to put the file path to this image in here. So let's go ahead and try that. Now, because we have a folder, what we need to do is we need a slash, and we can actually say images, click there, and then we can go ahead and choose which image we want to use. I'm going to start with whatever it was, tutorial 1, that really ugly one. And then I'm going to go ahead and close my image tag. And you'll note that I don't get a closing tag. Now, this is right. This is just sort of this is one of the tags where you don't necessarily need to have that closing, right? Img. Oops. I don't know why it chose to put that paragraph in there, but I probably hit P on accident instead of I. Right. So you can do this, and there's text you can enclose in here. I'm just going to call it. I'm just going to say, right, image 1. And let's just see what that looks like as we go forward. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to come here, I'm going to render, and you'll see it's broken. Something isn't right. Now, what is going on and what's wrong with this? If I right click on this and I say inspect, right, what it's going to do is it's going to actually open up all of these options. And if I come down here and I select this, you'll see that there are some problems with this file name, and that's what's going on. The problem is that the file name has a space in it. And browsers hate spaces in file names. So I'm going to need to change the name of that file in order to use it. So let's go ahead and try one of the other ones without a space in it before we go to change this. Right? And so I'm going to go ahead and just close that inspection. Right? That's how that at least works in Chrome. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, oh, so that's not correct. So let's go ahead and select this part and delete this. And then let's just say let's do this man, whatever JPEG. And let's go ahead and save this and let's see if this functions. Okay, so this didn't work either. So then we have to say, okay, well, where's the error at? And I believe this might be it. Let's go ahead and see. Okay, so there it is. Now this image is absolutely enormous, right? And so that's kind of creepy when he's that close to you, right? But this image is absolutely huge. Now, one of the things that we can do is we can adjust the width and height of the image using the Img tag. And we're not going to focus on that right now, but it's also one of the things that's really, it's something that you should not be using the width and height variables that we'll talk about at a later time to scale these images substantially, right? If this image is this big, what you should do is bring it into an image editing program. It could be a free image editing program like GIMP or Krita, or if you have a subscription to Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Creative Cloud, you could use Photoshop or whatever. But basically, right, this is too big and you should open it up, resize the image, save it, and then use that resized version. Because again, we don't want huge resources up here if we can have smaller and lighter weight items to use. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go ahead and check the GIF out and see what that looks like instead. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and I'm going to type in animtest.gif. I'm going to save this. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to run this. Right? Okay, and this is also large, but you can see that, right, this animated GIF is playing in the window. Now, something to note, I pulled in, I think, JPEGs and a GIF, but PNGs have transparency, right? They have the ability to have transparent backgrounds, or, basically not be opaque all the way to the edges of the square. And so you can use PNGs to do, like, if you had like a special, like a font or a text header that you wanted to use, but you didn't want to bring a font in, which we'll talk about later, right? You could use that as an image placeholder, and then whatever your background color is, it would look nice against that. You can create logos and have those logos on whatever background color you want if you have that transparency. So PNG allows you a lot of options as well, right? Okay, so I've got this. Now I want you to note that when the image works, right, that text that I put in there, that image1 text does not show up. Oh, it does show up. It shows up at the bottom like a caption, right? So it will contain that text. And, obviously it's not necessarily needed. So let's go ahead and, yeah, we could fix the name on this tutorial 1 image. But what I would like you to do is to start to experiment with some of these images. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and shrink some of these images so I can show you something in a little bit more grid-like fashion. So I've come into Photoshop, and I'm just going to go ahead and resize this quickly. The way you do that is you just say image size, and right, this is 4000 by 4000 with 300 resolution of 300. I'm going to make this about 150. You'll see that has shrunk it down to 2000 by 2000, which is still incredibly large, right? It was 48 megabytes in size. I really just want this, for our purposes, I'm just going to make it 300 by 300 pixels. It's going to be pretty small. There's some noise reduction, and this resample says preserve details enlargement. I'm actually shrinking it So I'm just going to go ahead and just say automatic, and I'm going to hit OK because I don't really care. Oh, he's so tiny now. And then I'm going to go ahead and save this as, right, maybe it'll just be man and small, right, or web or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and sure. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and try and select his head as part of the foreground, and then make the background transparent so you can see the difference quickly. So object. Okay, quick export as PNG, mansmall.png. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Okay, so I've made those two changes, and so now let's go back to our stuff, and I'm also going to pull up Chrome, and I'm going to go ahead, and I want you to note that, that Visual Studio Code actually allows you to preview images as well, which is pretty great, right? You don't have to go to another piece of software to make sure you're choosing the right image. So now you'll see that I've got these two options in here. And one of them, it's hard to tell, but there's a transparent kind of grid behind there. And this one has that solid color in the back. And so let's go ahead and start with this mansmall.png. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my index, and I'm going to change this to mansmall.png. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy this whole line. Oops. And I'm going to go ahead, and undo that. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter and paste it. And I'm just going to change this to JPG. So something to note is all of these are case sensitive. You want to make sure that, if it's not working, right, for whatever reason, it decided it wanted to drop / in before images. I don't know why it chose to do that, but this is the right way to do a path to a subfolder of the folder you're currently in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this, and let's just see what this looks like now if I refresh this. Okay, there we go, right? So you can see that, right, here's his head floating in space on this white background, and there's his head. This is the JPEG with it framed in. And so you'll note that, right, again, these tags, right, apply things to the right. There's no break. It's not dropping them down unless we tell it to do that. So if we wanted to have these images display vertically on the page, one way we can do that is by just creating the BR or line break tag and save this and render or refresh, right? And now you can see that it said, oh, this is the end of the line, and it popped down to a new line. Similarly, if I just start writing some text after this second one here, and I save it, and I render this, right, the text is going to continue as though this is a right, as though this is a word or a character in the sentence. And if I go back here and I actually have some text in front of this and save this and refresh, right, you'll see that it also starts the text ahead of time. Again, it's treating this like an item in the body of the text. And through CSS, there's ways we can change this behavior, but that's something just to note, is that how images are treated, even though they are a block of space, they are often, right, treated as something that goes in line by the browser. Okay, so, right, this is a way that we can add images. Yeah, so now we can do text, we can do images. We've basically made every website, text, images, and links. We've basically at this point made every website that was made from, the mid-90s, to 2000. So congratulations, we can all recreate the internet at that stage. Now, there are a few things we haven't talked about. Tables yet. We haven't talked about a couple of the other basic formatting tools, but we're going to bring those up in the following tutorials. So this was just a quick tutorial on how to add images.